And as we remember the victims of those who perished in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we have an opportunity to reflect and clarify the sources of peace and nonviolence within our life as well as within our own tradition. To seek peace and nonviolence not only means to look global issues, but at the sources of violence within ourselves. True peace begins with myself. As a Buddhist, our aim is to cultivate oneself in order to awaken to how things really are, and not just how we want to see them. When we begin to look at our own lives, then we look deep at the roots of hatred and violence in our own society and the world and truly listen with compassion and thoughts. The words and actions will naturally move towards peace and nonviolence. To have compassion in our own hearts will calm our anger. The brutality seen on both sides in Russia and Ukraine since 2022, and as of July 2025, about 62,700 people have been killed according to the Gaza Health Ministry. This is yet another reminder of the consequences of war. Today, our world has become increasingly torn and battered by violence that goes beyond national boundaries, and yet we continue to meet violence with violence. The reading I began with are words spoken by Shakyamuni Buddha over 2,500 years ago. It is a reminder for us to recognize that hatred does not cease through hatred, but through compassion. The foundation of peace ultimately lies in the hearts and minds of each person. Peace begins when we truly see our connection to a greater reality and our own responsibility to others. Today, on this 80th Memorial Service, in memory of those who lost their lives, let us reflect on the world peace and that it brings inner peace. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we need more than symbols and peace. Folding paper cranes, do peace march cannot alone, unfortunately, end the threat of nuclear war. While I was in Japan studying for my ordination, I had an opportunity to visit Hiroshima Memorial Peace Museum. Display was daunting. Charred remains of children's school uniforms, books, lunch boxes, personal accounts of A-bomb survivors of the carnage and devastation that they had witnessed. Also on displays, actual paper cranes that Sadako completed before she succumbed to leukemia. Sadako only folded 644 cranes of the 1,000 paper cranes that would assure her longevity and happiness before she died at the age of 10. I would like to close with a haiku written by 11-year-old Sadako Sasaki. I shall write peace upon your wings, and you shall fly around the world, so that children will no longer have to die in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinban Briones. Now we're going to conclude the religious part of the program. I'm going to start with an opening message. This is from our Shukan, our head minister of Yuju Matsumoto, who is in Japan, and I'll read it. Today we, gather in solemn remembrance of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which took place 80 years ago. On that fateful day, countless lives, innocent and irreplaceable, were lost in an instant, and generations that follow have lived with the deep scars of that tragedy. We mourn those who perished. We honor the survivors who bore unimaginable suffering, and we pray that such devastation will never be repeated. Since 1989, Koyasan Beikoku Betsuin has continued to keep alight the peace flame, which you see right there, that was entrusted to the city of Los Angeles from the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park. This sacred flame symbolizes our ongoing prayers for the souls of those lost and for lasting peace in our world. Even now, it quietly burns as a beacon of hope, remembrance, and commitment. The global landscape remains uncertain. The threat of nuclear weapons still looms. But in the teachings of the Buddha, we find powerful truth that compassion, mindfulness, and prayer from each and every one of us can transform fear into understanding and division into peace. Let us remember, peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, respect, and shared humanity. Let us carry forward the memory of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, not as relics of sorrow alone, but as calls to conscience, urging us to build a world where all life is sacred. With heartfelt reverence, let us pray for a peaceful future. Now I'll call on ASA for their greeting.
Thank you so much for joining us here today, for taking time out of your weekend and being here with us. The American Society of Hiroshima and Nagasaki Atomic Bomb Survivors, thank you for your participation here today. And once again, thank you to Regina for putting together the program for today. Thank you.
Now we're going to have the candlelight presentation. We're having one of our ministers actually take a flame from the Hiroshima light here and present it to light up the candles here that we're going to present. This flame was brought in 1984 during the Summer Olympics. And then in 1989, Koyasan became the permanent home for the flame. From Nanka Kenshinkai Kyogikai, Mr. Kahei Otani. Nagasaki Kai, Mr. Shuto Hako. From Hiroshima, Kenshinkai, of Southern California, Ms. Susan Yoshikawa. Japanese American Cultural Community Center, Ms. Patricia White. From the Japanese American National Museum, Ms. Kristen Hayashi. Betsuin of Los Angeles, Reverend Yu Mori.
第80周年 ASA 原爆 非追悼法要が執り行われるにあたり、原爆の犠牲となられた方々の御霊に対し謹んで哀悼の誠を捧げますとともに、メッセージをお送りいたします。米国広島長崎原爆被爆者協会の皆様並びに関係者の皆様におかれましては、在米の被爆者に対する支援にご尽力いただくとともに、この追悼法要を長年にわたり執り行われておられますことに対し、心から敬意を表します。80年前の1945年8月6日、人類史上初めて広島に原子爆弾が投下され、町は衝動と化し、多くの人々の命や日常生活が奪われました。そして心身に悪影響を及ぼす放射線は今なお被爆者にさまざまな苦しみを与え続けています。こうした逆境にもありながら、被爆者これまでこんな思いは他の誰にもさせてはならないという切なる願いから、自らの体験を語り、核兵器の恐ろしさや非人道性を伝えるとともに、他人を思いやる気持ちを持って平和への願いを発信してきました。しかしながら、現下の世界情勢は核保有国において核兵器の近代化や増強が図られるなど、核兵器使用のリスクが高まっています。平均年齢は85歳を超え、高齢化が一段と進み、日常生活に支援を必要とする被爆者が年々増加する中、その思いに沿って核抑止力に依存することなく、対話によって平和的な解決を図る外交政策への転換がますます重要になっています。このため、国内外を問わず被爆者の方々に寄り添った援護の早期充実を図るよう、関係機関と連携し、国に強く働きかけを行ってまいります。皆様には今後とも被爆の実相を守り広め伝える取り組みを通して、核兵器の廃絶とその先にある世界恒久平和を実現するために共に力を尽くし行動してくださることを心から期待しています。終わりに、原爆死没者の御霊に心から追悼の意を表しますとともに、ご参列の皆様の今後ますますのご健勝とご多幸を心よりお祈りいたします。
長崎市長の鈴木史郎です。はじめに、原爆の犠牲になられた多くの御霊に追悼の意を表しますとともに、米国広島長崎原爆被爆者協会 ASA の皆様におかれましては、毎年アメリカ・ロサンゼルスにおきまして長年にわたり原爆犠牲者を悼む法要を執り行っていただき、心より感謝申し上げます。今から80年前の1945年8月9日午前11時2分、長崎市の上空500メートルで炸裂した一発の原子爆弾により、長崎の町は一瞬にして廃墟と化しました。凄まじい爆風と熱戦により、およそ7万4千人の尊い命が奪われ、あの日から80年を迎える現在も、多くの方々が放射線による高障害に苦しまれています。この惨禍を体験した被爆者の皆さんは、世界中の誰にも二度と同じ体験をさせてはならないという思いから、これまで自らの痛ましい体験を語り伝え、核兵器廃絶を力強く訴えてこられました。しかし、世界に目を向けると、核軍拡の動きが加速するとともに、長期化するロシアのウクライナ侵攻など、国際情勢は悪化しており、核兵器が再び使用される危機が一層高まっています。また、これまで平和活動を牽引してきた被爆者の平均年齢は86歳を超え、被爆者のいない時代が刻一刻と近づいてきています。 このような中、被爆者の全国組織である日本被団協が核兵器廃絶に向けた長年の地道な活動が評価され、昨年12月にノーベル平和賞を受賞したことにより、世界中では被爆の実相への関心が高まっています。また、長崎市では今年平和をテーマにした国際会議の開催がいくつも予定されており、核兵器廃絶への機運醸成につながるものと期待しております。さらに、被爆80周年の節目という好機を捉えて、今こそ被爆地長崎から被爆の実相を国内外に幅広く伝え、長崎の平和の思いをしっかりと発信していくことが重要であり、広島市とも連携しながらさまざまな取り組みを進めていきます。皆様方におかれましても、核兵器廃絶と世界恒久平和の実現に向けて引き続きお力添えを賜りますようお願い申し上げます。結びに、米国広島長崎原爆被爆者協会の皆様並びに本日ご参列の皆様の今後ますますのご健勝とご多幸を心より記念いたしまして挨拶といたします。令和7年8月3日、長崎市長鈴木史郎。
With the participation of ministers from both United States and Japan, and with prayers for peace offered by many individuals involved, the flame of peace, which is enshrined Koyasan Beikoku Betsuin and lit again today during the service, was kindled from the eternal flame that has been burning continuously since the Kobo Daishi performed the Goma rituals on Mount Misen in Hiroshima. It was brought here in Los Angeles, carrying with its sincere wish for the peace. Kobo Daishi vowed that long and sentient beings suffers, his aspiration to save them would never cease. To this day, he continued to pray at Okunoin in Koyasan. No matter how many years may pass, we must never forget the sorrow, honor of the war, horror of the war. May the prayers for peace, which have long been upheld in Los Angeles without interruptions, and which are renewed again today by all those gathered, spread throughout the world, harmony with Kobo Daishi, lead humanity away from the suffering caused by fear and conflict. Daisojo Shindo Hasebe, abbot of Kongobuji Head Temples of Koyasan and chief patriarch of Koyasan Shingon Buddhism. This is a letter from Bishop Shunga Kiryu. My name is Shunga Kiryu, and I serve as the Director of Educational International Affairs Department for the Kongobuji Head Temple of Koyasan Shingon Buddhism, designated to UNESCO World Heritage Site in Wakayama Prefecture, Japan. On this occasion, as we approach the 80th anniversary of end of the World War II, the holding of this memorial service for the victim of Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb is an event of solemn and profound significance. It is truly noble undertaking has provided moment to reflect anew on the meaning of the world peace. For this, I express my deepest respect and gratitude. In the 80 years since the people of Japan have been blessed with remarkably long period of peace, I believe that our present tranquility is fruition of the Syrian prayers for the peace from the vast number of the war dead, both friends and foe, as well as from the countless non-combatants who lost their lives without ever wishing for conflict. As we pray for the end to conflict between nation, people, religion, humanity face another crisis that threatens our collective peace. This is a criticism of environment destruction, which endanger our very existence and jeopardize the survival and prosperity of future generations. Thanks to the advanced science and technology, we have grown accustomed to life material abundance. This has come to a great cost. The Earth's resources have been depleted. Our atmosphere is polluted. Extreme weather has been new normal. Despite the imminent danger, we are reluctant to change the daily habits we have cherished. Habits of mass consumption, relentless destruction of our natural world. In Japan, ancient Shinto faith, it is believed that divine spirit, kami, dwell in all nature, mountain, rivers, plants, trees. This reverence have fostered a deep-seated tradition of preserving the natural world. Similarly, in the teaching of Shingon Buddhism, which Kobo Daishi Kukai brought from China and perfected in Japan, we learn that life resides in all things, not only humans, animals, plants, but in every element of existence. Between these lives, there is no discrimination. The teaching states that the being in this world, not just humans, are inherited in Buddha and can equally realize the Buddha's nature. For the ending, survival of humanity and all life of this planet, let us embrace this teaching that is sacred, resides in all creation. With one heart and one mind, let us work together to realize we're all free from war and to halt the ceaseless destruction of our environment. From the sacred mountain, Koyasan, we pray for the world peace. In closing, allow me to leave with these words. Peace is not just prayed for, it's built by our hands. In Gassho Shinga Kiryu, Director of International Affairs, Gongo Buji Head Temple, Koyasan Shingon Buddhism.
At this time, we'll have our special guest speaker, Howard Kakita. Howard was born just a few miles from here in East LA, and he was 0.8 miles away from the hypocenter in Hiroshima when the bomb detonated on August 6th. He has a slight plot twist in his story, and I don't want to give that away. So at this time, we'd like to invite Howard to come up and speak to us.
80 years ago, the world changed forever. On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb, very primitive one, was dropped on the city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, another was dropped over the city of Nagasaki, taking the lives of over 250,000 people and leaving many, many more than that with injuries both physically and mentally. These survivors have carried for the rest of their lives. So today's story, my story, is about how a 7.5-year-old boy ended up with his brother in the middle of Hiroshima, 0.8 of a mile away from ground zero. Our journey to Japan starts in 1939 when we were informed that our grandfather, who lived in Hiroshima, was gravely ill and that he wasn't expected to survive. So our parents got a passport photo taken, got on a ship called La Plata Maru from San Pedro Harbor, and we journeyed on to Hiroshima. It's not apparent in this picture, but my mother was 8 months pregnant with my younger brother, Albert. I'm the littlest guy in this picture, the cute guy. Then upon arriving in Hiroshima, Albert was born. And this picture is taken early March, probably. You could tell we're having tremendous fun. Our grandfather, his health had improved greatly. And we're having a wonderful reunion with the various relatives. And you could tell from this picture, which is one of my favorite pictures of Japan, with everybody smiling with a sake bottle in one hand. Must have been a great time, although I was too young to remember. My grandmother in the upper left is carrying Albert on her back. Okay. And I'm that little guy holding onto my mother's hand. Unfortunately, in June of the same year, 1940, our parents found out that they had some business problem in Los Angeles, and they had to return to the USA. So they took my younger brother Albert and left Kenny and myself in care of our grandparents in Hiroshima. Their intent was to come back to us shortly after resolving the business, but December 7th, 1941, war started, and our lives on both sides of the Pacific Ocean were changed forever. And then 3 months after that, Executive Order 9066 was signed by President Roosevelt, and which sent 120,000 Japanese Americans into concentration camp, one of 10 that scattered amongst the western states. Our parents and my younger brother was sent to Poston, Arizona. Now, I'm fast forwarding to the morning of August 6, 1945, that fateful day. It was a beautiful Monday morning. The sun was shining. Unfortunately, it was a school day, so we got dressed to go to school. But about halfway to school, we saw a bunch of children returning back in our direction. And they told us that the school was canceled because there was still some enemy aircraft in the neighborhood. So happily, we ran back home, changed into our clothes, and then about 8 o'clock in the morning, we heard that there was an enemy aircraft approaching Hiroshima area. Kenny and I, we decided to climb on top of our roof of our home to see whether we could watch the vapor trail approaching. Luckily for us, my grandmother, who was in the kitchen washing dishes, heard the commotion on the roof and ran out to tell us to get off the roof. Immediately, we grudgingly came off the roof. And my brother, he decided to go outside to play. My grandmother went back to the kitchen to wash her dishes. And I, for some reason, went into a separate bathhouse structure that we had adjacent to the home. And that's when the bomb exploded, approximately 8:15 in the morning. Now, most people see the flash and the boom, and then at that instant, I was knocked out. So I don't remember the flash, nor hearing the boom. When I came to, the structure that I was in was on top of me, and I could smell smoke all around me. Luckily, I was not gravely injured, and I was able to dig myself out. And then I went into the courtyard. I then located my brother, and he had a small little, maybe like a quarter-size radiation burn right on his forehead, but he was okay. Unfortunately, my grandmother was in the kitchen next to a window when the blast occurred, and the shards of glass, dozens of them, embedded into her body, and she was trapped under the buried house. My grandfather and a couple other men dug her out, and although bleeding profusely, nothing was fatal. No arteries were severed. So 4 of us, my grandfather, my brother, grandmother, survived at that instant. But at this time, there were raging fires all around us. Everything was beginning to burn. And my grandfather and several other men formed a bucket brigade, trying to douse the fire with buckets, not knowing that the whole city was ablaze. And there was nothing that they could have done. But he instructed us to escape toward the mountain to the west. So my grandmother took our hands, and we ran to the main part of the road, and that's when we saw these refugees or casualties coming from the inner part of the city. I mean, just tremendous injuries. Hairs were singed off of their head. Burns were so severe that skins were dripping from their bodies. Some had broken bones protruding. I remember one lady was holding her stomach, trying to keep her intestine in. There were already by that time, number of people lining the road, dead bodies, and some struggling to try to get a drink of water. Many of them would be sitting there yelling and screaming for some water, but there was no water to be had. Anyway, we walked through the Sea of Carnage and got to the foothill of the mountain and returned northward through farmland, rice paddy, and so forth. I'm not sure how long we had walked. Maybe it could have been an hour, it could have been 2 hours. I'm not really sure. I had no knowledge of time at that time. Anyway, we found a functional train station, and they were able to take us out of the burning city towards northern part of Hiroshima, area called Kabe. So I think it's about 10 kilometers from the civic center. And we had some relatives there, and we took refuge there. So that's how my August 6th was spent. 3 days later, another bomb was dropped in the city of Nagasaki. That'll be on the 9th of August. It'll be 9 days after that, on August 15, Japan surrendered. And after the surrender, maybe 2 weeks after that, we went to, I think it was probably in the late August or early September timeframe that we returned to the area where we used to live. But when we got to that area, it looked something like this. This is a panoramic photograph taken by Army Corps of Engineering. And it's right at the Civic Center. Nothing is standing except for stumps of trees, building, just the non-combustible portion of the building. There's that dome you could see in the background. All the dead bodies, most of it was removed by this time. And there was a constant 24/7 period of cremation taking place. However, there were still under the rubble a number of dead people still there. The stench of cremation was something horrendous. It's something that I could remember even to this day. Now, when we got back to the exact location of our home, where it was, the only thing that remained was a air raid shelter, which is basically a 10 by 10 feet hole in the ground, reinforced by lumber and filled on the top by dirt. We lived there for several weeks until we were able to build shacks above ground that you could see in the background of this picture. By this time, we had lost our hair. We had tremendous dysentery and fever. But somehow we did survive that period. That was my paternal grandfather and grandmother that I was living with. My maternal grandparents were in the city called, or town called Furue, which is about 3 kilometers from the hypocenter. Their house was intact. However, on that particular day, on a Monday morning, they took their produce that they grew on their farm and went into the city, the three of them. That was my uncle. I think he was a teenager at that time. When the bomb went off, my grandmother's body was never found. She just disappeared. My grandfather, he said that gravely injured. He had a tremendous wound on his head area. Gravely injured, searched for her for a number of hours to no avail. However, he was able to stagger back home, but he will die a month later in September. My uncle had tremendous burns on both of his legs, radiation burn, and thrown into a river. And the burns, he recovered from the burns, but it took a number of years. In 1946, school started. This is a class photo. You can see from this picture that the boys in the front are much younger than the boys in the back. So this probably represents like 3 grade levels of pupil. And it's probably only 1/3 of what would have been. At least 2/3 are missing. Most of them probably the missing had probably died. Some moved to another area, but quite a number of them were orphaned and roamed the streets scrambling. In case you're wondering, I'm that guy on the top row, 3rd from the right. The structure you see in the background, the skeleton of the boat, used to be an auditorium. And you could see in the forefront the rowboats that we were sitting on. That's what our school looked like when we first started after the bombing. Now, I've been talking about Japan. My parents were in Posen, Arizona, all through the war from 1942 to 1945. When the war ended, they were released and given the choice of wherever they want to go. And my father had a auto repair shop right here in the First and San Pedro area. It took them 3 years, from 1945 to 1948, to save sufficient amount of money to send for us so that we could all be together. So in March of 1948, our grandmother got us together, Kenny and I, and told us that we had to return to our parents living in the United States, whom we have absolutely no knowledge of because they left us when I was 2 and my brother was 3. So we didn't want to go. We didn't want to come here. They're the guys that bombed us. We didn't know the language. We didn't know the people. Not only that, what was trying most of all was the fact that we had to leave our grandmother, who basically raised us, nourished us. So we both raised holy hell. I mean, I remember screaming and crying. But as they put us on a ship, Kenny and I bound for San Francisco, where they picked us up. I did suffer for a number of years with nightmares and eating disorder. I couldn't eat anything that had pink or red tinge in it, which reminded me of the gore that I had witnessed as a child. Now let's take a few seconds to look at the global situation today. The scientists and engineers have had 80 years to improve the primitive bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima. Now we have bombs that are 100 to 200 times more powerful than that. And you could put several of these bombs into intercontinental ballistic missiles and deliver it to any place on the earth. And all of these, over 13,000 nuclear warheads scattered around the world, are all made on the pretext to be used for deterrent purpose. But the only difference between a deterrent weapon and an offensive weapon is in the mindset of the leader of the country. So where are they? Well, Russia and the United States have a little over 5,000 apiece. North Korea now has 50. A couple of decades ago, they had none, and they became a nuclear power. Now they have 50 with missile developing capability. China, several years ago, had 200 nuclear warheads. They have 500 now, and on schedule to have 1,000 by end of this decade. Pakistan and India have 170 or so apiece, and they don't seem to like each other very well. There's always seemed to be a skirmish taking place. United Kingdom, France, and Israel together have another 500. You could see the huge number of arsenal that's available in the world today. Winston Churchill, at the end of conclusion of the World War II, he says that those who forget history are bound to repeat it. So my concluding remark is, so let's remember the devastation caused in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and embrace our shared responsibility to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapon and eliminate its use altogether. And then finally, as the hibakushas are getting older and older, many of us will not be here, but our hope is that no one in the future generation should be designated as a hibakusha again. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, thank you, Howard. We're going to have words of appreciation, but following that will be candlelight offerings by atomic bomb survivors and victims, followed by incense offering by the congregation. After that, we have refreshments and a gathering. If you have not seen the display, please do so. And following that is a conversation, a piece led by the Rotary Club of Little Tokyo, Ms. Farida Fotui. Okay, she's right there. Okay, for words of appreciation, yes, they'd like to start first.
The American Society of Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb survivors would like to express a special thank you to all those organizations that support us throughout the year. We do not have many events the way we used to, but those few events that we have, they're supported, and we are appreciative of those organizations and those people as well. As for today, thank you for coming out and supporting us. Special thank you to Koyasan for hosting us today. Thank you, Howard, for your testimony. And thank you to all of you that made time to come out today and visit with us. Thank you.
Okay, quick thank you for the organizations, from the Consulate General of Japan, Los Angeles County Board of Supervisor, ASA, Nanka Kenshin Kyoki Kai, LA Nagasaki Kai, Hiroshima Kenshin Kai, Japanese American Cultural Community Center, Japanese American National Museum, Little Tokyo Historical Society, Rotary Club of Little Tokyo, and the temples of the Los Angeles Buddhist Temple Federation. And I thank the guest speaker and everyone who attended this in remembrance and prayer. Thank you.